Welcome back to the Fantasy Fortune YouTube channel. And today we are diving into 4 of my favorite fantasy football wide receivers to target in 2025 fantasy drafts. Throughout the rest of July and August, we will be pumping out my targets, my guys, my targets / avoids, guys I'm not drafting. I got about 15 YouTube videos prepped and ready to record, except for some more information in one. But here's part one of many throughout the summer for fantasy football prep. And before we get into them, I do have a free fantasy football draft guide. I worked for weeks on it. It came out a couple of days ago. It has my own personal tiered rankings with all of the ADPs through Yahoo, Sleeper, ESPN, Fantasy Pros. So basically all, like Travis Kelce, what's his ADP on each of this platform compared to mine? It's got strength of schedule for each position, points per game last season, advanced stats like red zone targets, target share, stuff like that. Trying to remember what else. That's not even half of it, I don't think, but there is a whole bunch. I'll pop it up on the screen, what's included and what will be included. There will be stuff added throughout the summer, but anyway, let's dive into it. The first guy is going to be Josh Downs. I don't understand why he's going outside the top 45 wide receivers. I think that this is one of the most obvious breakout candidates I've seen within the last couple of years. And my other candidate last year was Rashee Rice. I don't think he'll have Rashee Rice type of production, but he's going to murder this ADP. So first of all, we'll talk about his efficiency last year. He was 4th in targets per route. He was 17th in yards per route, 56th in route rate, meaning he did not run that much routes. 5th in average separation score and 4th in target per route run, which was 30%. So there is a lot of good to be talked about here. And a thing that a lot of people forget, 2023, he was a rookie. Bit of limited playing time, kind of went up as a typical rookie wide receiver was. Gradually, playing time and involvement in the offense is going up. He broke the Colts franchise rookie reception record with 68. And then last season in training camp, he had a high ankle sprain, so he missed a couple of weeks of the season and kind of got eased back for a week or two when he came back in. So he was dealing with some injuries, yet he still set career highs in receptions with 72, yards with 803, and touchdowns with 5. Now, he was the wide receiver 32 in points per game in a year where he was injured. He dealt with Joe Flacco and a pretty bad Anthony Richardson. Very down year for the Colts, and very, I don't know how to word this, but questionable. I won't even say it, but wide receiver 32 in points per game, yet now he's outside the top 45 wide receivers. With Anthony Richardson, he averaged 8.4 points per game, but with Joe Flacco, it was 13.5 points per game. 7 games, and in 5 of those, he finished as a top 24 wide receiver. Now, the way it's looking right now, Daniel Jones has the lead in the battle, partly because Richardson, had a shoulder flare up and hasn't been practicing. So, why wouldn't Daniel Jones have the lead? That's the one thing I don't understand from those reports. Oh, Daniel Jones is winning. Let's freak out about it. Well, one of them is not playing. But I do think there is a higher than 50% chance it could be Daniel Jones. And even if it's not, do we really trust Richardson to stay healthy or to keep the job? I think we're going to see a lot of Daniel Jones. And Daniel Jones peppered Wan'Dale Robinson in New York with 140 targets last year, which is a pretty similar kind of play style with Wan'Dale Robinson and Josh Downs. Except Downs is way better, going to be in a better offense. I just think that it's one of those obvious things where I'm scrolling down and he's in the top. He's wide receiver 48, I think. He's like close to the top 30 in my rankings. So I'll be leaving every draft with Josh Downs. And one more stat, which I actually have for all of these guys, team target share when actually on the field in 2024. You got Puka, Rashee Rice, Malik Neighbors, A.J. Brown, and number 5 was Josh Downs with a 34% target share. I don't know about you, but there is a lot of players in this area of fantasy football wide receivers that I prefer Josh Downs over. So let's get into the second guy, and that is going to be Courtland Sutton. Another guy that his ADP is outside the top 25 wide receivers. He's in my top 15, I think. If he's not in my top 15, he's easily in the top 20. I think he's going to crush his ADP. I think it's a disrespectful ADP, and I don't get it. So Bo Nix and Courtland Sutton last year, first half of the season, weeks 1 through 7, Nix averaged 15.5 points per game, and Sutton averaged 8.7. And then Bo Nix and this offense figured it out. I mean, this takes time, especially Sean Payton's offense for a rookie quarterback to learn and perfect the offense. By the second half of the season, he took a huge leap, had clearly figured it out. He averaged 22.1 points per game, and Courtland Sutton averaged 18 points per game, which was more than guys like Ladd McConkey, JSN, Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors, Drake London, and A.J. Brown. I don't know why people aren't taking that into consideration with his ADP. He had a 24.6% target share, which was the 11th best among all wide receivers last season. And that 18 points per game span in the second half of the season, that would have been on pace for 102 catches, 1,367 yards, and 10 touchdowns. He has a clear potential to be a wide receiver 1, a top 12 wide receiver, and you can get him in like round 5. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Not to mention 70% of his catches were first downs, which is a very nice statistic to have. Last year, he was 12th in receiving touchdowns, but 6th in expected receiving touchdowns. And why I like to look at these expected is because sometimes you have guys like Terry McLaurin, he scored 13 touchdowns, but he was expected to have 8. You have, who's the other guy? Oh, James Cook. Scored like 16 or 17 rushing touchdowns. His line before the season was 2.5. That's a huge outlier season. So the fact that he was expected for more receiving touchdowns than he actually had is a good sign for positive regression. He was also second in end zone targets and 4th in red zone targets. He's an alpha wide receiver 1, in my opinion. He's a touchdown monster. The statistics back that up, and it's a bad ADP if you ask me. Now, before the next two, like I said, Courtland Sutton is going at about wide receiver 27 on Underdog. And if you're looking to get into some early fantasy football drafts, Underdog Fantasy has best ball. You can be throwing out $3 entries and win up to 20 grand, or there's plenty of tournaments. You can throw out $25 for Best Ball Mania and win up to $2 million. I can do a separate video and dive into the specifics of how these tournaments work. If you want, just comment down below. But if you are looking, you can get up to $100 for free just if you join Underdog with the code FORTUNE, and you can start practicing for your fantasy drafts and enter pools for $3 to turn it into a couple of $1,000s. It's very fun, and I highly recommend it. Number 3 is going to be Nico Collins. Now, I know he's a first-round wide receiver. Oh, that's so obvious. Of course, I would like to have him on my team. His ADP is about wide receiver 7. For me, it's wide receiver 4. And if I could choose somebody outside of Jamar Chase to finish as wide receiver 1, it might just be Nico Collins. This guy was an absolute monster last year before getting a hamstring injury. I'll use the same stat, team target share when actually on the field last season. Puka, Rice, Neighbors, A.J. Brown, Josh Downs. Number 6 was Nico Collins, 33.4%. Last year, he had a crowded receiving room with Stephon Diggs for the first 8 weeks, Tank Dell till he got injured. And by the end of the season, all 3 of them had their own injuries, but Collins was the lone man left. Now this year they add Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel in the first few rounds of the NFL draft, and they signed Christian Kirk. I'm not worried about it whatsoever. This is clearly Nico Collins, alpha wide receiver 1, and I think the sky is the limit. This pace that he was on before getting injured in week 5, was it? week 5 or 6. Yeah, week 5, which he didn't even play a full game, and he still scored 16 fantasy points, but he was averaging 21.3 points per game, which was good for the wide receiver 2 overall behind Jamar Chase, and he was on pace for 2,000 total yards and 300 plus fantasy points. That's something that you don't see very often. And I know, small sample size, whatever. At least it's not a 1 or 2, 3 game sample size. I have so much faith in Nico Collins, and I honestly would not be surprised come August if he's up there in my top 2 wide receivers, straight up. Notable contested catch rates versus press coverage. Minimum 50 targets. You have Nico Collins at the second best with a 66% contested catch rate, which doesn't have a huge fantasy impact, just kind of a little statistic I wanted to throw in there for how much of a beast he is. Enjoying my Red Bull as it is early in the morning right now. Got to get the grind out. All right. I want to try to keep these videos close. Short, so comment down below if you think I'm going too short or too long, but I'm going to get into my last guy, and this is Jauan Jennings. My only thing here with Jauan Jennings is there's a whole bunch of question marks of this San Francisco offense, right? You have McCaffrey at RB1. Is he going to be healthy? Is he going to be taking targets? You have Kittle, who's going to be Kittle. And the wide receiver room is shaky. Maybe not shaky, but we don't really know what it's going to look like, right? Jauan Jennings had a bit of a breakout last season. Ricky Pearsall showed some promise down at the end of this season when he got the opportunity and finally got healthy. Then you have Brandon Ayuk coming back from an ACL tear. Should, I think, be starting off on the PUP list, which frees up space for Pearsall and Jauan Jennings. And I am in on both Pearsall and Jauan Jennings this season, and I'll make another video on Pearsall. And I'm out on Ayuk because of coming back from an injury. He wasn't good last season before he got hurt. We don't know when he's going to be back. I think he's a waste of a pick. But number one, Jauan Jennings last season, among 104 wide receivers with 40-plus targets, he was 9th in targets per route run, 14th in yards per route, 15th in PFF receiving grade, and 10th in ESPN receiver score. From weeks 10 to 18 last season, he was averaging 8.6 targets per game, 14.1 fantasy points, a 28.5% target share. And he's going outside the top. I think he's going, this is not updated, this is my notes from weeks ago. I think he's up to about wide receiver 35. I'll pop it up right here. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I will say, this team target share when actually on the field after those top 6, it was CD at 7 and Jauan Jennings at 8, 31.7% target share when on the field. Now let's talk about year 5 breakout wide receivers, because that is pretty much what he was. Now, a lot of these guys, I'll pop up this graphic. These are some of the year 5 breakout wide receivers, and shout out to Dwayne McFarland for this information on Twitter. Manuel Sanders, Will Fuller, Doug Baldwin, Golden Tate, Julian Edelman, Mike Williams, Adam Thielen, Christian Kirk, Robert Woods, and Jauan Jennings. Now, if you look at their points per game compared to the following season in year 6, most of them kind of stayed the same, right? You have Baldwin, 1 point less, Tate, 3 point less, Sanders, 3 point less, Mike Williams, 2 point less, Edelman, a little bit more, Adam Thielen, 4 points more, Christian Kirk, about 1 less, and Robert Woods, 3 points more. So some of these guys are averaging a couple more, some of them are staying the same, and some of them are taking a slight dip. But the takeaway here is that even with a slight dip, like some of these guys have, still going to be very valuable at his current ADP. And for me, I think that I see this Jauan Jennings situation as, some of these guys had opportunities. Obviously stuff changed. Quarterback, wide receivers in the wide receiver room, offensive line, situation, coaching, all that fluctuates through your first few seasons, and finally you get the opportunity to break out. Some of these guys have been on the field for 5 years. For me, Jauan Jennings, this was the first year he finally got an opportunity. We saw a little sneak peek in the Super Bowl in 2023. He got his opportunity, and I think he was on his way to winning Super Bowl MVP if the Niners had won that game. Jennings finally got his opportunity, and he capitalized. He was an absolute monster when he had the chance. So, in my opinion, Jauan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall, like one of those guys is going to be the wide receiver one, or those guys are going to be the top two receivers here. I'm not really too worried about Ayuk. I really like both of these guys. Passing volume should be there. So I think he's a pretty safe pick outside the top 35. And if we see anything like what's on this graphic with these guys taking another leap in year 6, even if it's just by 1 or 2 points per game, he'll be well inside the top 25 fantasy wide receivers. So he's a guy I have my eye on. All right. So that's going to wrap it up today. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure you comment down below your thoughts on these players, any topics you want to see. And I'm going to be pumping out these videos multiple times per week from now until the start of the NFL season. We did this a little bit last year. Got busy with college in early September and just never got back around to the YouTube. But I'm fully diving in this year. Graduated college, got a little bit more time on my hands. I won't be, busy with homework and studying for exams and going out to the bars with college friends. I'm going to have some time to do this. So make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to help me out, and we'll see you on the next one.